Today's gospel stories that we just heard are very, very connected. They are miracle stories. They happened for God's purpose. The story first is of Jairus, right? The very wealthy, prominent man of the synagogue, a church leader. And his daughter was very sick and very close to death with a terminal illness. And we see Jairus being very, very desperate, but he was also not filled with anger or despair. He knew what he had to do. He went to Jesus right away. And Jairus, what he did was he chose humility and faith. Humility and faith. As upon seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet, as it says, and pleaded earnestly with Jesus. So he said, "Please come, lay your hands on my daughter, that she may get well and live." And Jairus recognized Jesus, who had this wonderful stature and authority, more than he had. And he believed 100% in our Lord Jesus, that he could heal his daughter, right? And he had no questions or doubts at all, believing only that Jesus could restore her back to life. With all that happening, we had this, again, parallel miracle happening with this woman, right? She's been suffering with hemorrhages for 12 years. When I first read that years ago, I was wondering, what does that mean? She's been bleeding for 12 years. Well, she was on her period for 12 years. I couldn't believe that. It was awful. It must be awful. And she spent all of her money on doctors, and nothing worked, right? And she knew what she had to do. She sought Jesus after hearing about him, because she knows and she believes in her heart that only if she would see him and touch his clothes, touch his cloak, that she would be healed. The power, you guys, the power of faith. The power of faith is the main point of today's gospel readings. I remember during our parish mission, does anyone remember Father Ken Geraci, who was here for our parish mission? Well, on the last day, remember, he was taking the monstrance, the Blessed Sacrament of Jesus, and he was wearing the cope that the priests wear, and he was walking around this church, blessing people with the Blessed Sacrament, with Jesus' true presence. And he was asking the people to go ahead and touch his garment, touch the garment of Jesus as he walked around this church. And what I had heard was amazing miracle stories from that experience. Someone told me that they had been cured completely of cancer. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And another family told me that they'd been praying and praying for years that their kids would go back to Mass. And later on that week, they shared with me that their kid was, in desperate trouble and started going back to Mass and was totally reconverted back to the church. How wonderful. Miracles do happen. Jesus does all these things for us when we believe. Jairus recognizes, again, that everything was before him, and this woman recognizes that Jesus is everything as well. That's the power of her faith. Now, it is the key, right, to our miracles in this world. So many things happen as a miracle. Faith is essential, which means believing that God can do absolutely everything. That's the key. We have to believe that God can do absolutely everything. And also another thing we have to remember, just like Jairus, we have to be humble. We have to humble ourselves. We have to put ourselves before God with full confidence in him, not ourselves, in him, with all of our prayers and all of our petitions when we ask God for something, all right? Being a converted soul for the Lord is so important. And also knowing that God can handle everything, because that is a sign of faith. That's what Jesus looks for in all of us, are signs of faith in us. And we have to trust and know that, and everything requires that faith to the highest degree. So, Samir, I'm going to ask you to do something for me right now. I want you to close your eyes, okay? Close your eyes. Do it, all right? Now, I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine something. Imagine that Jesus is in front of you, walking right by you. Walking right by you. Then I want you to imagine something else. I want you to imagine yourself, and what you really need from our Lord. I want you to have that faith to go to Jesus. To go to Jesus. So you catch up to Jesus now, okay? You catch up to Jesus and you reach out and you touch his garment. You touch his clothes. And now I want you to imagine this. Jesus looks at you. He looks at you right now. And he asks you, what do you need? What do you need right now? Now I want you to look Jesus right in the eyes. Look him in the eyes. Tell him exactly what you need. Jesus then looks at you in the eyes. He sees you full of faith. Full of faith. And he tells you, your faith has saved you. Be it done unto you as you wish. St. Mary, that is amazing faith. That is amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Believe in Jesus.